Hi everyone. So today is going to be the first of many paranormal story times. Thank you all for letting me know that this is something you'd be interested in. So I do want to say that I just went to film this, and as soon as I started the story, the video cut out, my screen went black, and the video stopped. So that was a little creepy. I had to say my prayers and call upon my guides to protect me while I tell this story. But anyway, let's just get right into it. So back before I realized that I was a psychic or that I had gifts or that I was connected to spirituality, I used to look for spirituality in all the wrong places. And I used to actually go with a lot of different groups of friends to abandoned insane asylums, abandoned psychiatric hospitals, from back in the day when they would put people in those places and experiment on them and shit. So I used to go and break into those a lot with friends. But this story takes place at a institution that was called the Mansfield Training Center for Imbeciles. So huge red flags with the name alone, and pertaining to how you would imagine they would treat their patients there. So anyway, I went with my best friend, her boyfriend, and another friend, a mutual friend of ours. And so a lot of times with these places, they're really blocked off. There's boards over the doors, boards over the windows. You really have to break in. So we kind of went through the campus a little bit. Another thing about these places that I see a lot is they won't tear down the old buildings, and they won't they'll condemn them, but then they'll put new buildings in all of it. One of them that I used to go to in Newtown just had the town hall in this abandoned campus of psychiatric wards, and this one is part of the Yukon campus. It's called the Depot campus, but there's all these abandoned buildings throughout it. It's very weird. So anyway, we get to the campus and we start looking around and searching for an entrance that we can use of any of the buildings that we could break into. So we eventually find this little kind of hidden door on the back side of a building. You have to climb through this dead garden to get to it, and it's boarded up, but the bottom is kind of pulled, somebody's already gone in through there. So my friend's boyfriend, holds open the board for us, and we all go in, and I go in first because, this was my thing. This is what I did, in my spare time. So I go in first, and the first thing, it's stressing me out just thinking about it. So I slip through this wooden plank kind of thing, and I am immediately faced with this dark, steep-ass cement staircase that it goes down really deep into the ground, and then it's cemented off of where it would lead to. So that immediately tells me that I believe that would lead to the tunnels. A lot of these psychiatric wards would have tunnels that they would put the patients through so that they would never have to take them outside, or to take them to do secret kind of things that they didn't want people to see them, doing. A lot of them have underground tunnels. So the first thing I see is the stairs that go to the cemented off tunnel in front of me. And I look to my left, and it's this weird room, and the ceiling didn't go, or the wall didn't go all the way to the ceiling. There's a space between the ceiling and the wall. But just, it gives me the fucking creeps thinking about it. Just in a perfect line of 3 in that room. There's, garbage and bullshit in that room because it's abandoned. But right in the center, in a line, 1, 2, 3, are wheelchairs. And these are, one is, a wheelchair-looking thing. One is, a restraint wheelchair that you would restrain someone with. And another is, they're different kinds of restraint wheelchairs, and they look like torture devices, creepy as hell. And I'm okay, off to a good start, I guess. So the rest of us, everybody filters in, and everyone immediately is what the fuck about the stairs? And then they also look to their left, and they're what the fuck about the wheelchairs? But we keep it moving. And the room, how I was saying that the ceiling doesn't go all the way up, there's or the wall doesn't go all the way to the ceiling, the next room over is what we would call the file room. So, it's making me sad just thinking about it. So we go over into it, and it's literally this big ass room just covered in files. Like, you can't even see the floor. Everything is just covered in files, and it made me so sad because I was like, these are people's lives. Like, each page here is connected to a human that was like alive and ill and being treated, like mistreated. Maybe they weren't all mistreated, but like, to put somebody in a psychiatric ward for epilepsy is really off the mark. But so anyway, so we get in there, and it felt so terrible stepping on these files because I felt like I was stepping on these people's stories. There were old pictures of people and old like negatives that you would, make pictures with. But so we go in there and we're reading a bunch of different ones. I read this one about this poor girl who was autistic, and she would hit her head on the wall like 50 times, stop, do a lap around the room, go back and do that all day long, just smashing her head on the wall, and they didn't really know how to help her. They just put a helmet on her or would restrain her. And then I read this other one about this poor 17-year-old girl who was an orphan, and she kept getting like moved from house to house, and they thought that she, was having like mental health issues because she had epilepsy, so she'd have seizures. And apparently she reported at one of the homes that the man, this is just so sad, that the man of the house, her adoptive father, had molested her. And, they didn't believe her because they thought she wasn't sane, when in reality she was just an epileptic person who had seizures. So she had to be there with all the other people with issues that don't really fall into that category of mental health. And also, she never received treatment for, being a victim of assault, which was really sad to me. They kind of just talked about how she was a liar and how she would spew these lies and shit, and they had some negatives attached to her file. But yeah, it was disturbing, and we were all just reading them, learning about the patients. And before we knew it, like, we went there in broad daylight, and before we knew it, the sun was starting to go down. Because when I say, like, there was files everywhere, there was files everywhere. There was like broken file cabinets flipped down, cabinets flipped up with files still in them, like files everywhere. Whew, but the creepiest thing about this room was there was one of those electric wheelchairs. It's giving me heart palpitations thinking about it. It was in the middle of the room, but it was like a poster that, like, no matter where you go, it looks at you. It was like I could feel there was something attached to that wheelchair that was like looking at me no matter where I went in the room. It was like, ooh, like it felt like I was being watched. So eventually we see that the sun is going down, and we're like, we need to get the fuck out of here. So we find our way back out, and we leave, okay? And we're like, we're going to come back another time. We're going to do some more exploring. We're going to do some more research. So later that night, I went to sleep, and I had a horrible dream. And this was before I knew I dreamwalked. This was before I knew I astral projected. I dreamwalked, that I was so sensitive. So anyway, so I had this fucking terrifying dream that it was me, like, in present day. I was in a hospital gown, and I was in a hospital. I was sitting on one of those, like, medical beds with, like, the paper on it, and the lights were, I just remember them being so bright and so fluorescent, like such hospital lights, so, like, ooh, and so they were beaming down on me, and there was a nurse, and she was, like, checking me in, and she was checking me into this psych ward, and I just kept saying to her, like, I'm not crazy. I mean, I would never use those words now, but in my dream, in high school, or college, but I think it was college, I just kept saying, I'm not crazy, I shouldn't be here, I'm not crazy, I shouldn't be here. And the nurse was kind of like, yeah, that's what they all say, like checking me in, filling out my file, and then she left, but she left the door open. So I'm just like fucking in this hospital gown, no shoes on, and I'm like, okay, so I like see my opportunity, and I stick my head out the door, and I look both ways, and like people aren't paying attention, so I'm like, I need to make a run for it. So I start booking ass down this hallway, and for some reason I'm looking up, and I'm looking up at the fluorescent lights, and I'm running and running and running, and then all of a sudden I look down at my feet, and I'm running, and my bare feet are running on tile at, like, in this hospital, and all of a sudden the tile starts to, like, slowly fade away, and I am running on fucking files. And the next thing I know, I'm in that, my crown is like, girl, my crown chakra is bothered by this big time. So anyway, I'm running on files, and now I'm in the file room, and it's like dimly lit like it was when I was there. There's like files everywhere, filing cabinets, it's dirty, it's fucking nasty, and all of a sudden I get that feeling of being watched. And so I turn around, and that wheelchair is like angled at me, and the thing to like move it forward, because it was an electric one, it just like clicks forward, and this wheelchair starts traveling towards me slowly as fuck, but feeling fast as fuck, because you know that's just how it goes. And I'm like standing there frozen, and I'm like, and it's just moving closer and closer and closer. All of a sudden I wake the fuck up instantly, and I'm like, oh my god, that was terrible, that was horrible. And do you know what? I hear fucking footsteps outside my door. It was like 3 in the morning, some early ass time in the morning, and I hear footsteps pacing outside the door of my bedroom. So how my house was, it was like my bedroom was here, my sister's bedroom was here, and my parents' bedroom was like down the hall. So at first I'm like, oh, maybe someone's like up trying to go to the bathroom or something. But these footsteps just keep going right outside my door, back and forth, and my heart is like nervous, but at the same time I still just thought it was a person. All of a sudden they stop, and I'm like, oh, phew, like, thank God, it was just somebody going to the bathroom. Wrong! So then they start fucking right above my head in the attic, right above my room, just fucking pacing back and forth. And let me tell you, I had one of those attics where like you could only like carefully maneuver on the beams, because if you walked just like across the attic, the tiles of the attic would like move, and you would go through the roof. Like, it was one of those attics where you just like couldn't walk on it, you go through the ceiling. So the fact that someone was fucking stomping back and forth above me, then I knew that there was something that I picked up from that place. It was some sort of fucking ghost or some sort of bullshit that I picked up from that place. So I immediately, like, I can't breathe, but I'm too scared to move. So I just lay there, and I didn't have the education I have now on what to do in a situation like that. So I just lay there, like, with the blankets up by my face, you know, terrified, and I just wait for those fucking footsteps to stop, and eventually they stop. And I gain the courage to walk the foot, like literally 1 foot, over to my light to turn it on. That's how scared I was. I just didn't want to move. And I run and I turn on my light, and I just sit up in bed, awake, from like 3:30, 4 in the morning until the sun rises at 7 a.m., like 7:30. And then even then I was still scared, but it was light out, so I was like, you know what, I'm about to go to sleep. But yeah, I went to sleep after that, and I immediately, when I woke up the next day, I told my friends, you know, what happened, and I went back there a couple times after, but not, like, I needed a break after that. I needed some time to separate myself from it after that. But yeah, so that's my first paranormal story time of this channel. I have many, like many, because I used to seek this shit out. I also just attract it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to comment, let me know what you think. Go ahead and leave a comment. Subscribe if you feel like it, you know, all that stuff. And thank you so much to all my viewers, subscribers, and those who interact with me on this platform. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you again sometime. Alright, bye.